Man, what a great thing you've created here.
Oh, thanks. Did you get a little tour?
I did. Hannah gave me a tour.
Did she?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Yeah. Well, actually, you can see a little bit of what we're trying to do in what you're building. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you guys definitely need some more space.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because we're going to go from this building to what you're building right now for us. And we're going to feel like we're swimming in space. It's going to be actually, and honestly, it'll be that way probably for a few years. It's going to be a little crazy. But yeah, for people that don't know, Ryan is building, he's the steel contractor on our building site for, we call it MKC 3.0. The garage over there across the driveway is 1.0. This is 2.0. So you're building 3.0, putting up the steel for it. But we'll get to that. But I actually wanted to, when I was out on the job site, like this winter plowing snow, you were telling me just a little bit about your kind of a little bit of the history of your steel company, and how you got started and whatnot. And, I thought it was cool. It kind of stuck in my head. I wanted to expand on it more, but we didn't really dive too far into that. But I figured we'd step back a little bit and, get a little history on it, like where you grew up and stuff. Did you grow up around here?
I did. I actually grew up in Potomac until third grade. So
you're the one. There's not very many people in Potomac.
Yeah, no, there's not very many people in Potomac, but I was there until third grade, and then my parents got a divorce and they moved to Missoula, and then I went to school in Missoula.
How many kids were in your grade school classes in Potomac?
I think there was about 30, 40.
Like all total as far as...
Oh, just in my grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. But total in the school, I think they have about 300.
That's bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Huh.
There's a lot of people. I mean, there's not a lot of people, but we're a small town.
Right. Serves a pretty big area out there.
Mm-hmm.
When you moved into Missoula, where did you end up going to school then?
Mount Jumbo for a little while, and then I moved to Lewis and Clark.
Yeah.
And then Washington, and then Sentinel.
Oh, you bounced around a little bit.
We did.
Yeah. What did your parents do when you were growing up?
My mom was a teacher, and my dad started a business too called Superior Hardwoods and Millwork.
Okay.
And he harvested a bunch of trees from Illinois and brought them over to Montana and started his company.
Really? So that's how that got started?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So Superior Hardwoods is a really cool store. I've been in it a bunch. I actually used to kind of cruise through there when I was a lot younger for like little chunks of hardwood for knife handles. Mm-hmm. And then I've bought hardwood stuff for like my houses and stuff over the past, and even some wood that we like built our kitchen table out of. There's like an old hand hewn oak beam that's probably 150 years old or something. It's like literally got hand forged like little square nails still in it from when it came off of who knows what. But that's a really cool store. It
is. They're doing really well. He's got all kinds of stuff from all over the world, Africa. He's harvested a bunch of stuff out of the Great Lakes, a bunch of logs that have actually sunk to the bottom.
Oh, really?
And they're over 100 years old too. Some of those beams that they have are longer than 80 feet.
Yeah.
And they're all hand hewn.
Yeah, you go through their yard out back and there's these big, huge beams out there, and you can tell they were all, completely hand hewn, dovetailed joints, all the little coping and different things that they did for, whether it was for a bridge or maybe it was a house they took apart or a barn, or it's pretty wild. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think those bigger logs, where they used to float them somewhere to a millwork place, and some of them sunk to the bottom and actually preserved them.
Oh,
so they pulled them from the bottom, and he's got a bunch of them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Does your dad still do that?
I don't know if he's still pulling them out of the Great Lakes. I think he's still got.
Well, I mean, still has Superior Hardwoods.
Oh yeah. He still has it, and my brother's kind of taking it over. Mm-hmm. My dad, he's 71 years old and he's ready to retire, but
yeah,
I don't think he'll ever actually get out of the business. He just loves it so much that he'll be there till the day he dies, I'm sure.
Right. What kind of things were you into in high school?
Fishing and hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, that was mainly it. I did play baseball. I wrestled, but yeah, fishing and hunting was my life.
Yeah. So what'd you do after high school?
After high school, I went to the community college for diesel mechanic.
Okay.
And then I worked in the steel industry, building steel buildings for a company called Hop Construction.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for about 8 years. And then I decided to go into mining. So I just took my diesel degree, and I was a diesel mechanic in the mining industry for 18 years after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like where at?
I did 6 years in Troy, Montana, up at the Rivette Minerals mine.
Yeah.
And then 12 years in Nevada.
Okay. So were you just doing diesel mechanic stuff on like the big like mine trucks and excavators and that kind of stuff, or what were you doing?
Yeah, the drills, the electric diesel over electric drills that we had. There's bolters that put bolts in the ceiling to support the ground.
Oh, for like tunnels?
Yeah, it was all underground, 20 by 20 headings, miles underground.
Really?
Yeah.
And what are they mining?
Over in Troy, we were mining copper and silver.
Okay.
And then in Nevada, it was all gold.
Okay. God, what's it like going down those shafts?
At first it's a little scary, but you get used to it after a while, and it's just like working outside.
Yeah, except it's dark.
It's dark, and you got to wear a headlamp. And
yeah,
we actually had some fairly big size shops underground that had cranes and all kinds of lights. And yeah. So we would just mechanic underground. We'd bring them to the shop, and we had connexes full of parts and tools.
How deep were these shops?
I mean, we went down probably about 8,000 feet.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So every 1,000 feet, it would be a level. And in Troy, it was room and pillar. So they would mine out, and they'd have these big pillars, and then they'd bench it out. So sometimes there would be some areas where it would be 100 feet to the top of the roof, or top of the back is what they would call it in the mining industry.
Really?
Yeah. So it was big open areas in Troy. And then over in Nevada, it was cut and fill. So you would cut out a heading, and then they'd backfill it with like pretty much concrete. And then you'd go beside it, and you'd go underneath it or over it. You just pretty much cut it out and then fill it back up, and then go to another area.
So cut it out actually exposed to the actual outside, or how does that work?
So you portal in, so you make your first hole, and then you go in, and then they'll set up like a Cubex drill that can drill pretty much 360 degrees. And they're like, it's a core drill. So they'll find where the gold's at, and they'll map it all out for us. And then we'll go into those areas. And sometimes, you got to drill and blast to get all this material out. And then there's a loader that loads it all up and then brings it out of the mine.
All underground?
All underground.
How are you blasting that and having everything else hold up and not want to cave in and collapse?
I mean, most of the ground it's hard rock. So it's pretty solid. So you'd have the jumbo come in and drill a bunch of holes over the face in a certain pattern. And then you'd have the powder truck come in, and they would essentially start in the middle, and then it works its way out. Mm-hmm. And they tie all the leads together, and then someone would light it off, and it kind of blows out the middle first, and then blows the sides in, and then the loader and the haul truck would come in and bring it all out, and then they'd start the process all over again.
So if you're that deep, how are they hauling that? Is it ore?
Yeah.
How are they hauling that out of the mine?
In Troy, we were running 60-ton haul trucks. So pretty big haul trucks underground.
Just driving them up a big long ramp, essentially coming out of
pretty
the ground?
much, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
they like switchbacking, kind of like a mountain pass coming out of there?
I mean, there was some pretty steep inclines. Sometimes we had spiral declines that we would go down in big, like a big circle initially, like 6 turns.
Just like a big corkscrew.
Yeah, just down to the levels that we'd had to go to get the ore out.
Man, that's incredible. What do you guys have any accidents that you experienced?
Yes, I was actually on the mine rescue team in Troy and over in Nevada, so I got to experience quite a few accidents and some fatalities.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Just like small collapses or
collapses. I mean, people getting run over by their own equipment, but mostly ground fall.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you deal with, like here when you dig down, you hit groundwater. So how much water do you experience down at those levels? And does the time of year matter? Like in the spring, May, June, we get all this snow melt. I mean, Troy, Montana gets a shit ton of snow. Yeah,
the mine up there was actually below a lake. So we would actually lose some of the areas because there was so much water coming into the mines. I think Troy had, I want to say like 100 horse pumps pumping water out of the mine at all times.
Really?
And sometimes like in the springtime, we would lose the bottom areas because there's just so much water coming in.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
They're mining underneath a lake.
Yeah.
And is that water, I mean, imagine that water's got to be finding small cracks in the rock and filtering down through into that, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
There was sometimes there would be some core holes that we'd actually have to plug up because you would hit a spring and it would just be gushing water out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen where there was so much water coming into headings that we had to leave the equipment and get out of there before the water, consumed us pretty much.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just can't stop.
And then you just kind of wait until midsummer until the water starts, they start catching up with getting all the water out of the mine. And then we could go back in there and retrieve the equipment and the pumps and everything.
Wow. What was the worst part of working in mines?
Just being dirty all the time, pretty much, because the diesel particulate and just being underground, you come out black sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
How do they handle air management with that? I mean, if you're running, there again, it's not something I thought about. If you're running a huge diesel loader, mine trucks hauling out of there, how are they pumping fresh air into that, and how are they managing that?
Usually so when you first go in, you'll have a vent all the way down to the front of the heading, and it'll be blowing fresh, clean air into the heading, and then it'll just retract out of the mine.
Basically, it's pressurizing it.
Yep.
Are you guys wearing respirators?
Sometimes, but not all the time. There was like the safety crew would come down and check the air quite frequently just to make sure that we were all right.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, but that's incredible.
For the most part, it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was pretty clear air just because it was blowing that fresh air right at the heading.
Are those mines, is that mine up around Troy still going?
No, they're doing reclamation right now. There is another mine that Hecla owns that's on the other side of the mountains from Libby. So kind of by Noxon,
mm-hmm.
or just past Noxon a little ways. It's called the Rock Creek Mine.
Okay. How are they getting that gold out of the ore? Because I remember when I was a kid growing up, how old are you?
I'm 43.
Okay, basically the same age. I'm 44. But when I was in Lincoln, during high school, Lincoln, Montana, there was a huge mine, Phelps Dodge mine, that was supposed to go off there east of town. Basically, would have taken a mountain that probably goes up 1,800 feet in elevation, big mountain, and they were going to create a several 1,000-foot deep hole. I mean, take that mountain out and then basically go down two or three mountains worth down.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to have to reroute the highway and all kinds of things, but that was back when they were trying to push legalizing cyanide mining in Montana. And I remember it being a huge issue. I think it was like I-191 or something way back then. Big deal around there, and it got defeated in Congress, and they never did that. Actually, it wasn't Congress; it was on the ballot, and Montanans voted it down. But it basically killed that mine because the only way they were going to get that gold out of that iron ore was to leach it through a cyanide process that I'm not real familiar of. And to be honest, I don't know how they ever could have done that kind of mining. You know, they said they could do it without polluting, but the Landers Fork, Copper Creek, Alice Creek, all these creeks, they all flow down in the Blackfoot River. Tons and tons of snow. How they would have ever retained that much water and controlled it and not had it, leach into the river was the big hot topic back then. But how were you guys getting the gold out?
So they had a process where it was a big ball mill, so it'd get crushed up with steel balls, and then it pretty much, they turned it into like a black fine powder, and then they would run it through these baths that they put certain chemicals in there, and what it did was, have you ever put a peanut in like beer?
Yeah.
It floats to the top.
Yeah.
Kind of the same concept. So it would attach like to the gold and the silver and copper, and it would float it to the top, and it would look like pretty much like black froth. And like there'd be these big fans going in the water, and it would froth over the sides, and then they'd pour it over this big drum and dry it out. And that was the ore, and then they would ship the ore to another country to get processed.
Really?
Yeah.
Would they just train it?
Yep.
On train, go out of there?
Like straight out of Libby to, I think, up north somewhere.
Oh, really?
I don't know exactly where.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. That had to have been gigantic equipment you were working on. Like being a diesel mechanic on that had to have been hard work, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't too bad. I mean, I enjoyed it. I like working on that kind of stuff. 60-ton haul trucks, two boom jumbos, the bolters. There was, and then like the front end loaders that we called muckers, low profile, but they're not too bad. Bigger stuff's kind of easier to work on just because you can access everything.
You can get in it. Yeah. So what made you get out of mining then?
The whole time I was thinking about mining, I kept dreaming and thinking about building steel buildings again.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, even though I was making really good money in the mining industry, I always dreamed and thought about building steel buildings.
And you did the steel buildings for how long did you say? Before?
About 6 years.
6 years. And then mining was, what would you say, 17?
18 years.
18 years?
Yep.
So what was it drawing you about the steel buildings? I mean, one, I have to imagine seeing the sun would be nice. Working underground has to be mentally, or was it mentally challenging?
It was. We did seven on, 7 off, 1 week nights, 1 week days. So sometimes we would push through and do 21 days in a row. It's a rough life. And I mean, it beats you up. I mean, I just didn't think that it was going to be where I was going to be for the rest of my life. Right. I kind of worked my way up the chain in the company that I worked for. And then in 21, I just decided to move back to Montana and start this business.
So you were in Nevada. And what was it about steel buildings that, like, what's the draw? Why were you thinking about that when you were in the mines?
I just loved doing it.
Really?
I did. And I really felt like it was my purpose. Like I had a little bit of a calling to do it.
Is it seeing the completion of your work, like when you're done?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I imagine that's one thing when I was a lineman, I can still drive around and point to damn near every power pole that I worked on. It's weird. You don't forget them. Like, oh, I worked on that structure, or, this happened at this power pole. Like, it's just weird. But even with power lines, linemen take a lot of pride in the fact that when they build that power line, it's probably going to be there for the next 100 years. And they take pride in training the wires on it and making the transformer banks look really nice, or at least good linemen do. Because you're taking pride in the fact that the general public probably isn't going to notice it, but people that do, like, look up and be like, those people did they made everything look nice and symmetrical. But you're building something that's going to stand there forever. Same thing with the building. I have to imagine that I'm sure you drive by buildings all the time that you've built. There's got to be a sense of pride there.
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, just in the 6 years that I think that we worked with Hop, I probably put up 15, 20 buildings in the 6 years. And yeah, they're still standing. We did the Forest Service that's at the airport, the big MK building that's just right across the road from the airport, John Deere, Big Sky Brewery, a lot of big buildings that are in Missoula.
Yeah. You built that big RDO building up there at the Y. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, the one it's a big, long building. They called it the MK building.
Okay.
It's just got a bunch of subcontractors renting it out. I think there's 20 units in there.
Yeah. So when you came back from the mines to start your business, what was in your mind? Like, how did you do it? What was your kind of goal with it?
So I cashed out my 401k and bought some equipment. I got a hold of a few guys that I used to work with for Hop, and they were interested. So I got them on board with the crew. And then really from there on, I was just focusing on getting the right people to build a good team to build these buildings.
Mm-hmm. What, was that a challenge, like putting together enough of a crew to, and I imagine like a lot of times in blue collar work, you can find, it can be sometimes a challenge. Like you'll get characters that, maybe drink too much on Saturday and don't show up Monday, or they drink too much on Tuesday and don't show up Wednesday. And it can just be sometimes a challenge to get, as a business owner. I mean, my dad was in excavation. It can be a challenge to get people to show up every single day, be sober, not be on drugs, and also care as much as the owner cares.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So most of my crew is actually sober. They don't drink. Mm-hmm. I lucked out in that perspective. But it's just kind of the mindset and the motto that we kind of portray with the guys. And, we try and make sure that we're in the best shape of our life, and, we're trying not to drink or do anything like that. And just living that way is how we like to go.
Well, didn't you say you kind of have an all like dry crew? You've kind of put that together on purpose.
Yeah, we have. I mean, it kind of just fell into place with the people. Like some of my guys actually had addictions most of their life. And, we just painted a great picture of what we could have. And, we're just trying to build a legacy of health and yeah, it just happened. I got lucky pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, you make your own luck. And also when you're hiring, I mean, when we're hiring, culture and, we can teach people mostly what we need them to know. But it's really hard to change somebody's culture, hiring the right culture fit, someone who has the right drive, ethics, morals, goals, not that people can't change if they've, maybe made some poor decisions and they finally get to a point where they're ready to straighten out. But that can also be part of having a really good culture in a company. You can bring someone in who has those desires to change, but maybe hasn't been supported by the right people to do it, in the past.
Right. I mean, I think it's all about portraying the right mindset. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did have problems with a few guys going back to drugs, but
right.
I gave them second chances and talked them through it. And, now they're doing the best they've ever done.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I've noticed like being out on our job site, man, those guys are, there's times they go out there, you're not around or whatever. They come up, they chat, and they also seem to be very proud to be working on that building, and I imagine they're proud to be working on every building that they work on. They're proud of their work, but it's a cool mindset and a cool feeling. I will say like, so you guys started our building in February. We had the foundation done, whatnot. You guys came in. It's really a shitty time to start a building project.
It was.
That being said, it's easier with steel than like a lot of wood frame construction. just because the bolts are sticking out of the ground, they're there. You can kind of set those pieces in there. I've been on a lot of job sites where, people are trying to lay down, plywood flooring, and they're trying to snap chalk lines on stuff and frame wood walls. And you show up the next day and there's snow on it, and it can be a constant fight with some of the more traditional, like wood style framing. That being said, working with steel in the cold, everything's wanting to stick to your gloves if they're wet. Bolts are frozen, nuts are frozen. Like, steel's always cold when you're touching it. And it's slick. So I'm sure, and you guys definitely, when you came in, it was funny. We basically didn't have any winter up until then. Mm-hmm. And you guys were kind of getting things laid out, and then the steel arrived, and literally the day after that, you guys like laid out all the steel, and it snowed. And then it just felt like it kept snowing for like a month. But what was really impressive with your crew is every day I came out there, every day I would drive by, it didn't matter. I mean, we had some well below zero temperatures. We had wind, cold, snow, shitty rain, whatever. You guys just like powered right through it every single day. I don't know if you really took off any days that I ever saw when you probably could have, where it was just like, God, it's too cold to work today,
No, we were excited to get this project started. We're just really happy to be a part of it because it's just going to be such a big monument in Missoula. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to do our best and show you guys that we like to work. We're trying to make a name for ourselves right now. So It's just how we're doing things.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely had people ask me, well, they're asking all the time, and especially because I'm posting about it a lot. And a lot of people are keeping up with what we're doing nationally, but they're asking like, how's the process been? How's it going? Ryan Yarborough been working with those guys in Carl Construction. They've been great. Seems like he's constantly trying to kind of look around corners and stay ahead of you guys a bit. And it just, I've told people, I'm like, we have really had almost no issues. Well, I think we had issues on the very first thing that you hung on the first day. Yeah. There was like a bracket.
There was, really minor stuff from Nucor. Yeah. Carl Construction's a great company to work with. They're probably one of the biggest steel building guys in Montana. Mm-hmm. I actually worked for them for a year and a half.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Lou was, I think, my supervisor back when I worked for him, and then Fred Carl owned it back then, and then Lou took it over. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a great company to work for.
Yeah, this is a Nucor building for people that I've had people ask me, like, I learned a lot through this process. I actually looked into a lot of steel building stuff back when I built my barn, and I ended up just going with a pole framing that we just built ourselves. But back then, and actually when we built this building, I looked at steel. And this was still of a size where it was like, and I know a really, really good builder, Jace Johnson here locally, that does more of the traditional framing stuff. And it was like, man, it's actually just going to be faster to just frame this thing up and go for it, instead of having to get all this stuff engineered and whatnot. But at a certain size, you get to where steel makes a lot more sense, and I looked into a lot of different steel companies, and it's actually hard when you don't know a lot about steel buildings because there's tons of steel companies out there you can order packages from, and they all want to shoot you these like super, super low prices. But then you have to start wondering, well, where are they cutting compared to the steel building that just quoted you $25,000 or $50,000 higher the day before? It's like, well, where's the gap here, and why are they quoting you such a cheap price? But Nucor did a really nice job building all that stuff. Like you say, we've had a couple minor brackets that were welded on in a wrong spot or something, but I mean, that's on a giant building, that's to be expected.
Yeah, for the most part, they're the best ones to deal with.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Biggest, probably the biggest steel company out there.
Really?
Yeah.
It was cool because we actually got a message from them when I was kind of posting about what we were doing here. Some of their people must follow us in their factory. And they actually took a piece of the steel from our building and they cut us out an MKC sign and sent it to us. just because they thought it was really cool to be a part of this, I thought that was cool, that their workers did that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you explain kind of the process for people, we had a foundation poured, we had bolts in the piers kind of ready to go. What's the process for putting up a steel building? What goes into that, especially like in the winter like that?
Pretty much laying the building out right, getting organized, separating the columns with the rafters, and making sure that you have everything first. And as soon as you start with the red iron or gray iron, depending on what color it is, but the metal framing first. And so you hang columns and you tie them in with girts, and then you start hanging your rafters, and you kind of make a horseshoe, and then you put your rafters from the back and work your way out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the funnest part of the job, doing the initial framing.
Yeah.
And then after that, after you get all your framing done, then you do all your framed openings.
Is that the funnest part just because you see the biggest progress, like it goes fast?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I mean, you guys went in a couple weeks from there not being a building there to like, I would come to town and be like, holy shit, this thing's like, and it was amazing the comments I was getting, like, oh my God, and a lot of people think like, they would see the rafters going up and they're like, God, you guys are going to be done by June. And it's like, well, it's going to slow down.
Yeah, once you start insulating and sheeting, and with all the big windows and openings on the front, it slows down a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and you don't see as much progress.
Mm-hmm.
But and then you want it to make it look real good. So your sheeting and your trim work is really important so that you got a nice building.
Yeah. Yeah. And talk about the challenges a little bit of laying all that insulation on that roof, but also having to lay panels because it's winter, it's windy, freezing temperatures in the morning, you're walking around on a steel roof. But I found it interesting, like talk a little bit about how that insulation and kind of roof stuff all comes together.
So most of the time we use a system called the Simple Saver system, which actually acts as a fall protection for us too up on the roof. So we'll start by putting banding in between all the purlins, and then we'll run a vinyl up and over you start up at the ridge and you work you down towards the eaves. And you stretch that tight, and you tape it and glue it, and kind of create a fall safe for yourself. Also, it looks like a good product from underneath.
Mm-hmm.
But then once you get that vinyl up, then you start stuffing insulation in between the purlins. And then there's another blanket that goes over the top of the purlins. And you can only go so far when you got crappy weather.
Yeah, because if you get a whole bunch of that insulation laid up there, and then we get a foot of wet snow, or really bad wind, a storm comes in, it can blow that stuff out of there, right?
Oh yeah, it could turn into a nightmare.
Yeah.
So you only go as far as you can go sheet for that day.
Yep.
So we were pretty much doing about a bay and a half a day.
Mm-hmm. Laying all that out, and then that roof design has no screws in it, right?
No, it's there is absolutely no penetration in it, so it's pretty much leak proof. That's why they're such good systems, because you don't put any penetration through the actual panel.
Mm-hmm.
It's got like a clip system that holds the panels to the purlins,
mm-hmm.
and then you seam it with a seamer, so it double folds it to itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then it won't come apart. It won't leak. It's a pretty fail safe system.
Yeah, and then even when we were designing, when I was working with the HVAC people designing that part of the process, we put everything we could actually down on the ground to minimize any penetrations that would go through the roof, just to try to prevent leaks for down the road. And also, if that equipment fails or goes bad or whatever, you're working at ground level on trying to fix it. You're not up on a roof.
Right.
So once you guys got the roof on that, you guys seem to be doing a lot of just a lot of framing for the walls, and getting ready for the siding, which is where you're at now. You guys are, is there a reason you started on the window side, as far as, is that the most complicated side?
We started on the north side so that we could get the framers in sooner to start framing out all your offices.
Okay. Yeah, so for people that don't know, we have these mezzanines, which is the upstairs part, the office kind of part of the building. But you guys actually had to lay out this pan decking and build all this structure to where the upstairs floor is actually all concrete, but you had to build a structure that would hold. And I don't know how many yards of concrete they put up there, but it's a hell of a lot of weight that whole entire structure has to hold. And then once we poured that concrete, will you guys be doing the framing on the walls, or is that a different crew?
No, someone's coming in to do all the steel stud framing for all your offices.
Okay.
Indoor stuff.
Yep. But there's a bunch of insulation. We actually had, I think this is an upgrade to the building package, but is that 1-inch foam board on the outside of the building?
Yes.
You guys put all on there?
Yes, we are putting that stuff on. And then there's the other insulation that's cavity fill on the inside. Mm-hmm. So your R value is going to be real high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we did that just to, you actually see a lot of people that build buildings to sell or to lease out, and they don't necessarily care as much. Maybe they want to save money on insulation, but I own this building and I plan on owning it for a long, long time, hopefully generationally. So we did everything we could to, we're going to be paying to heat that thing. So by adding that insulation to that outside, it helps kind of with, and especially in our part of the world with cold, hopefully that'll help with some of that geothermal kind of travel through the the piers and all that stuff. So, or the columns and whatnot. So hopefully it'll make for a little bit more efficient building, a little less costly to heat or cool.
Definitely, with that 1-inch foam on the outside, it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been really interesting watching all the little parts and pieces of this. Like I was out there today, your guys are cutting all these little pieces and they're trying to frame around all these openings. I'm sure when you guys see doors and windows, you're like, oh my God, because it is an art form to get all that stuff to tie in, really look good, also not leak. You don't want to get water in behind everything. If water, blows in from a storm, we don't want that water getting down in between siding and the insulation and all that stuff. So, it's a lot of work, but, talk a little bit about, we're putting up Core 10. So what's the difference between like a Core 10 siding and then the other siding that we have going on the building?
So the Core 10 is pretty cool because it actually rusts itself. So it gives it a rust appearance and it looks really well. Mm-hmm. The PBR panels are just pretty much made in a factory, easy to install. And, it seems like most buildings have the R panel on it. Mm-hmm. But the Core 10, that's why we had to do all those extra studded walls inside of your walls instead of just laying girts, because that stuff's a little heavier. And it's just going to make a good break and transition, and it's going to be really appealing to the eye. Mm-hmm.
Do you think it'll look pretty cool?
Oh, yeah, I think it's going to look awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, architecturally wise, it's going to be a cool looking building.
Yeah. Is that Core 10 a pain in the ass to work with?
Not really. I mean, I like working with it. It's just a little thicker, a little heavier. It's pretty easy to work with. Mm-hmm.
So how far do you take the process before you guys are kind of done and someone else takes it over?
So after we get, all your walls up and all the insulation up, all the trim work up, then we'll come inside and do all the liner panel, and then we'll pretty much be done.
Okay. So what are you expecting? Like, how long are you expecting to be on this before you're out of here?
I mean, I think we got maybe another 4 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Another month?
Yeah.
Do you have another job already lined up you're going to?
Yeah, we got, we've been doing Discount Tire. It was a structural, building. It's CMR brick blocks with bar joists and decking in the inside, just kind of like your mezzanine.
Okay.
And then we have another 40,000 square foot building, just going right before you go under the highway going up Butler Creek.
Okay.
And that's going to be like another subcontractor condo, like leased out kind of deal.
Okay.
And then we We have another job up in Polson that's going to be a horse arena. Some Polish people that are putting that up, and they actually have their living quarters inside the horse arena, and it's actually got a basement in it. So this is actually the first steel building I've ever done with a basement in it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so they're gonna be living in there with their horses. It's a pretty cool setup.
Wow.
Skylights.
That's like a different version of a barn-dominium.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, do you, with doing this kind of, like with doing this kind of work, like I noticed, like when you guys are doing the roof, tons of bending over, like it seems like work that's pretty hard on your bodies. How do you guys fare as far as like just the physicality part of it?
I mean, we seem to do all right. I've been pushing the guys pretty hard on this project. But it seems like I ask on every Monday how everybody's doing, if they got enough rest and that
Right.
sort of thing. But it seems like everybody's faring out pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
if anything, I've seen everybody just get leaner and stronger through the process.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, it's it's been very, very cool to watch. I think it's easy for, you're working right along Interstate 90, and I think it's easy for the general public to just drive by projects all the time. And, whether it's, somebody installing sewer main or water main along the highway, or, roofing contractor putting a roof on some building, steel building guys, linemen working on power poles. I think it's easy for the general public to just take for granted the work that like blue collar people are doing out there, the excavation guy putting in a septic system or whatever. But there's so many different careers that make our country go, and that's part of what I think people miss with like all the news right now with like bringing back American manufacturing. We're a really, really small piece of this, but it is an example of like when I was out in that building today, there was 6 or 7 pickups at least parked inside the building, not to mention the amount of people on the outside. Just by building this building, and this is a fairly small building in the scheme of things, but just by us building this building in Missoula, the amount of jobs that creates, the amount of revenue, tax money, right? The money that we're paying you guys to build, you're going to take that money and go out and spend it in the local economy and whatnot. And I don't think people realize it's not, when they talk about bringing American manufacturing back, it's not just the actual manufacturing job itself, like, assembling, some little widget or whatever. But it's the whole entire process of building a factory. You look at some of the chip manufacturing companies being built right now, buildings being built in Texas, or what Tesla's done on building some of their big factories. It creates industry actually sometimes years before the actual thing is being made, and I think people need to frankly be a little bit more appreciative of it'd be real easy for a bunch of your guys to be sitting at home on unemployment, or, not going to work in January and putting up steel buildings and working their ass off, shoveling snow or whatever. But instead they're choosing to go and build these buildings that are going to help serve our communities, whether it's apartment buildings like you were just talking about that you have coming up, barns, shops, manufacturing facilities, hospitals. It's guys like you that are actually building America, which I think is really cool. But I would like to know, how do young, I see a lot of young guys that are 16, 17 years old, they're junior, seniors in high school. They don't want to go to college. How does a kid get into like the steel erection business?
I think if I was myself and coming out of high school, I wasn't ready to run a business.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't have the right mindset yet. But just being an entrepreneur and doing this and being able to provide for all these guys,
Mm-hmm.
It's really rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
but even to work on like a crew, say if you're 18 and you don't want to go to college, you just maybe want to enter the steel building trade, as just a grunt starting out? Can young guys go get jobs in that? Is there any kind of training that they need? What do they need to go get a job, say working on your crew or somebody like it?
No, definitely. We love taking on new guys and being able to train them how we want to train them and get them started and with just some tools mainly they need. And, having young guys isn't a problem. I like training younger guys, and sometimes they're not already trained by someone else so that you can put your own mind into it, I guess.
Right. Are there any skills though that these kids need, or is it just a good work ethic and a good attitude? That's
all that I'm really looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think? Like, does it feel like the steel building trade itself? I see like these concrete buildings going up and different stuff. Does it feel like your guys' trade's getting busier? Is it kind of steady state, or does it really float with the economy?
I think it does float with the economy a little bit, but it seems like things have been picking up quite a bit, even though there's been steel tariffs. I don't see any kind of slowdown. I mean, I'm getting calls all the time for steel buildings. I think a lot of it is just shaking the right hands, meeting the right people, and the work's out there. You just got to find it.
Sure. Well, what has it, has this project felt any different? Has it felt different than some of your other projects, knowing that it's a knife company or that we're locals, or, I don't know, has this project felt any different than some of your other projects, or are all your projects kind of the same?
No, this one's definitely been a little bit bigger than any one that we've ever done. It definitely has a different feel to it. It's pretty special being a part of it. Everybody that's on my crew is happy to see the progress, and they're excited to be there for Montana Knife Company. Just because of what Montana Knife Company's done and the way you guys treat your people. It's just kind of the same motto as how we want to run our company.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, you guys have done an amazing job. I definitely, try to tell some of the guys out there and whatnot, thanks every time we're there and whatnot. But, man, we, you sometimes, like, I didn't know you guys before we got going into this thing. And, there is a lot of trust factor too. You go borrow tons and tons of money. And for us, it's not like there's tons of money behind us, like that we just have to wait, right? Or to let this thing drag out. Like, there's a timeline, and the sooner we can be in that thing and have it actually starting to be profitable, the better. Right. And so to kind of entrust that into you guys, and then have you guys crushing it the way you have been, and even be willing to adapt. At times I'll talk to Ryan, and his plan is to have you guys going on to doing something a little bit different, but it's like, well, we want to, get framers in there. Right. And so it's like, we adapt the plan. There's never felt like there's been any pushback. Like, it's felt like a real partnership, that you guys want this building done as quickly as we do and as quality. And, I can't thank you guys and your crew enough for what you've done, because it's really put us into a good spot going into the summer here with getting, plumbers, electricians, HVAC people, everybody in there. And had you guys, not come to work a bunch in the winter, we'd be way further behind than we are right now, which we're not behind. We're actually, it's awesome. So, definitely appreciate the hard work that you guys have put in.
I appreciate that, Josh. It's a big orchestrated project. There's a lot that goes into it with all the different subcontractors. So it's a hard thing to manage sometimes, on that scale. And Ryan and Lou have done a great job doing that. And then I think you've been responsible too for some of the subs in and out of there too. So communication and just, sitting down and planning things out is real big. And it definitely has gone really smooth on this job.
Yeah, no, I think pretty much every day Ryan and I talk about something and just trying to keep it moving. And I'm trying to, I did have very strong opinions about who I wanted to use for, plumbers and electrician and some of that stuff, just because I have grown up and I've seen in these trades, and I've seen poor work before, and how much that can cost you in the future, or a lot of times when people hire subs, they just go low bid and they don't actually think for a second, like, well, why is that guy's bid just a little bit higher, but maybe he'll finish it 2 months earlier, well, that 2 months for us is huge, so for me, it's much more about quality and reputation than it was about like the exact bid,
Definitely.
So do you have a website or anything, or how do people, like, if people are thinking about having, and how far do you travel to put up buildings?
The farthest we've gone is Ennis. We put up a building over in Ennis.
Mm-hmm.
But we're willing to travel.
Mm-hmm.
We have a job in Great Falls this later in the summer. So I mean, we're pretty much covering Montana.
Right. Okay. Do you have a website or?
I do have just reliablesteelerectors.com.
Okay. Awesome. Well, if anybody needs a building built, and I think we're going to start seeing more and more of this with kind of the attitude and the, kind of the appetite for, American manufacturing. And I think people are seeing, like, for us, the benefit of, none of this tariff stuff really affects us whatsoever. We're just rolling, and we're crushing it and doing really well. And so long as the customers keep supporting us, but man, if we were sourcing all of our knives or a bunch of our stuff from China right now, we'd be screwed. And I'm hearing a lot of really scary stories, right now about that stuff. So, hopefully you guys will keep getting work. So,
yeah, I hope so. I don't think it's going to affect us at all. I mean, maybe down the road, but as of right now, it seems like we're busy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome, man. Well, great job. You got anything else you want to chat about, or anything that you wanted to mention?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity to build the building and bringing me on the podcast. And
yeah. Well, I think it's going to be a neat place for, hopefully the next 100 years for people to drive by. And I'm very proud of the fact that building's really the first one that you're going to see coming into Missoula. Like, nothing's building west of us on that Trap Club property. And by the time you're up and over the hill, you're heading towards Frenchtown. So really, for your guys' artistry with that building and our brand and whatnot, to be welcoming people to Missoula, Montana, like I take a lot of pride in that our name's on that. And hopefully, and you guys are always going to be welcome if you have potential, people looking at using you guys or whatever. If you want to bring people through our building and show it to them and what you've done, I think it'll be a pretty good model of what you guys are capable of, for sure.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I'll probably be coming to see you quite a bit.
Yeah. Good. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Reliable Steel Erectors, you said .com?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Yep.